Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye. Thank you very much. We're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 3, text number 11. So the question that comes up after Krishna explains that a person has to please Lord Vishnu by the performance of his own prescribed duties, and by doing that all the needs, all our needs will be fulfilled. Now in text 11, Krishna takes the discussion further by explaining how those needs are supplied, how are they fulfilled. Devan bhavayatanena te deva bhavayantu vaha parasparam bhavayanta shreya param avapsyata. So avapsyata, you shall obtain your needs, but not only your needs, but Shreya, your needs will be nicely met. Devan bhavayata, by the devas being bhavayata, being pleased. So the performance of sacrifice by performing one's prescribed duty for the sake of Lord Vishnu pleases the demigods. When the demigods are pleased, they are pleased to bestow upon you, they will please you in return. Bhavayantu parasparam. One pleasing the other, mutually pleasing one another. And being so pleased, when the demigods please you, when they benedict you, they provide all the necessities of life. They're in charge of all the necessities of life. The demigods, translation, the demigods being pleased by sacrifices will also please you. And thus, by cooperation between men and demigods, prosperity will reign for all. So, interestingly enough, the way it is being portrayed here in this verse, it's a very affectionate relationship one is having with the demigods, not just business-like fashion only. You know, like you go to a shop, you give some money and you get something. That's business-like. But here, with the words like bhavayantu, you know, and it's the same word, the same root for bhava, when you have affection. You know, the stage of Krishna consciousness, when you have affection for Krishna. That's called bhava. That same root meaning is being used here, bhavayantu. To actually have some affectionate relationship with the demigods. Very interesting. In yajna, and actually we find that in the history, that those who would please the demigods, the demigod would become very well disposed towards their devotee, and they would offer things that were not asked by them. I mean, even Lord Shiva would become he decided to become a doorkeeper for Banasura. I mean, he agreed. Banasura didn't ask him. He was just, but, so, there is a very affectionate relationship. Now, that is not to say everything in life is affectionate. Laws of karma are not affectionate. They are very businesslike. It's purely, so this is different. Yajna. Now, remember, this is not worship of demigods, right? This is worship of the Supreme Lord, as a result of which the demigods become pleased. But they become pleased in an affectionate manner. It's not wrong to put it like this, that they see, oh, this person is sacrificing for Lord Vishnu. I will take it upon myself to look after him. That's the kind of situation here. So this is how yajna bestows upon us ISKCON, all the things we desire. This is how it's done, through the agency of the demigods. So this is what Srila Prabhupada is going to explain in the purport. And yajna really is the way to make them pleased with us, rather than trying to actually worship them directly. Because yajna is meant for Vishnu, for Krishna. And interestingly enough, the phrase Shreya Param actually refers to spiritual perfection, not just material. In the verse we are just reading, there is the last line, Shreya Param Abhapsyata, that you shall obtain spiritual perfection, the ultimate perfection. Srila Prabhupada writes, the demigods are empowered administrators of material affairs. The supply of air, light, water, and all other benedictions, material benedictions, for maintaining the body and soul of every living entity is entrusted to the demigods. And so these demigods are innumerable assistants in different parts of the body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this is the mechanism by which, it's like science, right? How do things happen? How does electricity flow from one place to another? So it's called potential energy. When you have potential energy, it travels to a state of lower energy. Just like water from a high place naturally goes to a lower place. So there's a mechanism. So this is a mechanism of being benedicted. Of course, remember, we are conditioned to think it's my endeavor. But that's a mistake, really. It really is a mistake. I was reflecting on this before the class. I thought I must explain by giving a very pertinent example of ordinary life that will settle this argument. I'd like to say once and for all, but at least settle it for some time. Conditioning is such, we always come back. We always think, oh, just like when a child is born. What endeavor does the child make to get a certain kind of parent, a certain kind of house? What did he do to arrange for his food before coming to this world? None. None of these things were in the child's hand. And that's not just the believing child, that's true of the unbelieving child. That's true not just only of the human, that's true of every species of life. So this actually is the fact. It's just that we are conditioned, and it's a very serious conditioning. We do not doubt it for a moment that it's all dependent on me. If I don't do it, I am ruined. No. It is always the arrangement. The arrangement is going on. But when you become too materially absorbed, remember that word in the 2nd chapter? You become bewildered, right? From contemplating the object of the senses. Bewilderment of intelligence is the last step. This is the bewilderment. He starts to think, I am the architect of my own fortune, in the sense I can arrange whatever you cannot arrange whatever you like. You cannot. You are dependent. You know, Srila Prabhupada gave many classes explaining you are not independent. You are dependent. All the time, at every stage of your life. This is important. So this dependency can be exploited. You can exploit this dependency through the process of yajna. Because you are acknowledging to the Lord, my Lord, I am dependent on you. I will do my prescribed duty for your sake. The Lord says, oh, this is very nice. And He has all His assistants, the demigods, who notice, oh, the Lord is pleased. We shall look after Him. This is it. This is the mechanism. Very interesting. The demigod's pleasures and displeasures are dependent on the performance of yajnas by the human being. So their pleasure and displeasure is dependent on our performance of yajna. Some of the yajnas, now here Srila Prabhupada embarks upon the point that slowly is going there, that yajna, there are different kinds of yajnas, different kinds of sacrifices. Let's come to that. Some of the yajnas are meant to satisfy particular demigods. But even in so doing, Lord Vishnu is worshipped in all yajnas as the chief beneficiary. It is also stated, it is stated also in the Bhagavad Gita that Krishna himself is the beneficiary of all kinds of yajnas. Bhoktaram yajna tapasam. Bhoktaram, I am the beneficiary, I am the enjoyer of yajna and tapasya. Therefore, ultimate satisfaction of the yajna pati, Krishna, is the chief purpose of all yajnas. So Prabhupada gave a nice explanation there. Even though there are different yajnas for different demigods, really the beneficiary of all of them is actually Krishna. The demigods understand that, even if we don't understand that. When these yajnas are perfectly performed, naturally the demigods in charge of the different departments of supply are pleased. And there is no scarcity in the supply of natural products. Now, I'm going to digress and then come back. The challenge is, well, Americans never performed yajna. Why were they so blessed? With all kinds of opulence. Not today, perhaps, actually. Today, if you look at America, you may come back. You may not. But just a few decades ago, America was like the land of milk and honey. Everyone desired to go to America. Everyone, the whole world, envious, jealous of America. It had everything when nobody else had anything. They had everything. And so the question is, Americans did not perform yajna. In fact, if anything can be said about them, they were a calculating country. That's all they do. So Srila Prabhupada explained, this is just a digression, it's not really an issue, but we think it contradicts what these verses are saying. As it happens with an individual, it also happens for a country. What is that? That you can have a nice birth according to your past life, karma. But there is no guarantee that having been blessed with good karma this life, that your activities will be favorable for your next life. You may adopt a very degraded path, even though you might be blessed for good results from the past. So that's true for an individual as well as a country. Collective karma, individual karma. So if you have questions, we'll take it at the end. Now Prabhupada says, performance of yajnas has many side benefits, ultimately leading to liberation from material bondage. So that's that phrase, Shreya Param Avapsyata. You obtain not only your material needs, but you attain liberation. This is the mechanism of yajna. Yajna is not one-sided, only material things. No, it's a very complete package, both material and spiritual. By performance of yajnas, all activities become purified. See, this is the common denominator to everything, the science. By doing yajna, all your activities are purified. This purification is the key point. How do you become purified? You see, that's the question. Here you are engaged in activities. If you don't offer them to Krishna, the activity itself is not purified. It's the offering to Krishna that purifies you. There's more on that later on, hopefully through your questions. Anyway, by performance of yajnas, all activities become purified. As it is stated in the Vedas, ahara shuddhau, sattva shuddhi, sattva shuddhau, dhruva smritihi, smriti lambhe, sarva granthina, vipramoksha. So what is this saying? By performance of yajna, one's eatables become sanctified. And by eating sanctified foodstuffs, one's very existence becomes purified. By the purification of existence, finer tissues in the memory become sanctified. And when memory is sanctified, one can think of the path of liberation. And all these combined together lead to Krishna consciousness, the great necessity of present-day society. This is the mechanism. It's very... One time, there was a yajna, a fire yajna performed. And you put vegetables and fruits. So a devotee thought that these vegetables, when I cook them, I have to make an offering. Prabhupada explained, no, this is offered already. Because your eatables become purified by the performance of yajna. Anyway, see, we make an offering because we may not have done a yajna. But if you've done a yajna, all the eatables are already sanctified. Everything is sanctified. And this chain of sanctified, purified things lead all the way to having good memory that is able to think of the path of liberation, of Krishna consciousness. So I have two quotes in this verse. Both are purports in Srila Prabhupada's Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto. In 19th chapter, text 18, he writes, "These are purpose. There is an invisible chain of complete cooperation between the Lord, the demigods, and the devotees on earth. An invisible chain of complete cooperation between the Lord, the demigods, and devotees on earth." When Maharaj Parikshit decided to sit and hear Srimad Bhagavatam, the demigods were pleased and showered flowers on him. They became pleased. So he did yajna just by sitting down and hearing Bhagavatam. Can you imagine what kind of sitting down and hearing that was? That it pleased the demigods. It pleased them so much, they sent heavenly flowers. Instead of rain, flowers came down. So that means all yajnas are not the same. They depend on the quality of the performance. Next quote. This is from chapter 15, text 12. Purport. By the grace of Lord Krishna, Arjuna pleased all the demigods, whereas the worshippers of the demigods may achieve only partial benefits, which are also perishable, like the demigods themselves. One who is favored by the demigods may not be favored by Krishna. Arjuna pleased the demigods, so they gave him all their celestial weapons. So this is the process. Sometimes, when we give class, and just to explain how worship of Krishna is better than worship of demigods, sometimes people take a license and they say, well, worshipping demigods is like offering a bribe. But it's not exactly like that. If you do yajna, it's like the Ganges water. The Ganges doesn't get benefit from your offering of her water to her. You worship Ganges by taking a palmful of her water and offering it. She doesn't benefit. The demigods don't actually benefit from your sacrifice. Sometimes stories are told how Indra stole the yajna, the articles of the yajna, the ghee, this, the whatever. Or another person wasn't made an offering of the yajna. We must understand, it is simply they become pleased, that's all, by the offering. Now, you cannot concoct your own process of yajna, that's the point. There is a prescribed method, so we have to follow that. And in this particular context of chapter 3, the prescribed method Krishna is referring to is your prescribed duties. Do you remember? Krishna is referring to doing your duty according to your propensity. So now Krishna takes a discussion to the point that if you don't please the demigods and you enjoy things without pleasing the demigods, you become a thief. So, in other words, somebody may say, well, I didn't perform yajna, so what's the wrong? The wrong is you become implicated in the karma of your enjoyment. Ishtan bhogan hi bodeva dasyante yajna bhavitaha tair dattan apradayebhyo yo punkte stena eva saha. That Ishta, right? Those desirable bhoga, all the things of enjoyment or necessities that we desire. All these things the devas dasyante will give yajna bhavita by being satisfied from yajna. However, apradaya, if you do not offer give ebhya to these things that you want to enjoy to them, ebhya bhukte, and you enjoy them, yourself, you become stena. Stena means a thief. In charge of the various necessities of life, the demigods being satisfied. In other words, think about it. They gave it to you in the first place. You did not have some right over them. All the things we enjoy, we have in life, all we need, our necessities, are being provided. And they were provided without some price tag. Right? We drink water from the river, there's no price tag. We breathe the air, but it has been provided. It's not, you cannot assume that these things are just there for the taking. So if you adopt this attitude of thinking they're for the taking, you become a thief. Let's suppose you're wandering around and you go to a nice garden. It has fruits, vegetables. You just pick them. It belongs to somebody. So you are a thief, right? If you quickly take the things, run away. You're a thief. So that's exactly what Krishna is saying. In charge of the various necessities of life, the demigods, being satisfied by the performance of yajna, will supply all necessities to you. But he who enjoys such gifts without offering them to the demigods in return is certainly a thief. So that means you're liable for punishment. Thief means you're liable. So now, normally if you break into somebody's garden and you steal his vegetables and fruits, he may or may not catch you. But in this case, the demigods, how are you going to run away from the demigods? Think about it. You can't. You are, liable for punishment. The demigods are authorized supplying agents on behalf of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu. Therefore, they must be satisfied by the performance of prescribed yajnas. Prabhupada one time explained this by saying that the government arranges for you to have your water supply and your electricity. So they have their departments. So when the bill comes, you have to pay. Just an example. The demigods don't send you a bill, but you're expected to acknowledge their gift by sacrifice. In the Vedas, there are different kinds of yajnas. I was mentioning earlier that there are different kinds of yajnas prescribed for different kinds of demigods, but all are ultimately offered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For one who cannot understand what the Personality of Godhead is, sacrifice to the demigods is recommended. So, whether you believe in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, you cannot go through life taking everything that's being provided by nature without some kind of payment. So that minimum payment is sacrifice to a demigod. Now I have to remind you that this doesn't always apply to every living being. It applies to a person, the word was used, bhukte, who wants to enjoy those things. He wants to enjoy those things. So he has to show some acknowledgement of thanks to the providers, the demigods. So according to what he wants to enjoy, he has to do those kind of sacrifices. According to the different material qualities of the persons concerned, different types of yajnas are recommended in the Vedas. Worship of different demigods is also on the same basis, namely according to different qualities. For example, the meat eaters are recommended to worship the goddess Kali, the ghastly form of material nature, and before the goddess, the sacrifice of animals is recommended. But for those who are in the mode of goodness, the transcendental worship of Vishnu is recommended. In other words, those in the mode of goodness, this injunction doesn't apply because he doesn't even want to eat the meat. But ultimately, all yagyas are meant for the gradual promotion to the transcendental position. So there's a purpose behind all this mechanism, that slowly but surely we understand, the living entity understands, here I am, addicted to wanting to enjoy material facilities, material objects. But the process of yajna instills in him this idea, since all of these things are being provided by the Lord, why don't I show him some of my affection, my thanks, my gratitude? This is the point that's developed in the 9th chapter. Patram pushpam phalam toyam yome bhaktya priyachati. The culmination of this yajna business is to have some loving affection for Krishna. So, if you are making an offering to Krishna and you have no loving affection for Krishna, you have to read Bhagavad Gita to understand why it is you're doing. It's not a ritual. It's meant to be, it's an activity that's born of that impetus to show some affection. But if you reduce it just to a ritual and your affection is not there, then it's meaningless. Then it becomes what's called agyata sukriti. Accidentally you might have some partial benefit. For ordinary men, at least 5 yajnas known as Pancha Mahayajna are necessary. This is just by way of technical knowledge, it's not very significant. If you're really immersed in this life of enjoying your senses, then it's important. But if we go on to the point of pleasing Krishna, Prabhupada says, one should know, however, that all the necessities of life that the human society requires are supplied by the demigod, agents of the Lord. This is the point. They are not, Prabhupada says, no one can manufacture anything. Take, for example, all the eatables of human society. These eatables include grains, fruits, vegetables, milk, sugar, etc. for the persons in the mode of goodness, and also eatables for the non-vegetarians like meat, none of which can be manufactured by men. All of them are being provided. Then again, take for example heat, light, water, air, etc., which are also necessities of life. None of these can be manufactured by human society also. Without the Supreme Lord, there can be no profuse sunlight, moonlight, rainfall, breeze, etc., without which no one can live. So, a point is being made. Therefore, obviously, our life is dependent on supplies from the Lord. And Prabhupada rubs that point in again with a little bit more examples. Even for our manufacturing enterprises, which we're very proud of, we require so many raw materials like metal, sulfur, mercury, manganese, and so many essentials, all of which are supplied by the agents of the Lord. So basically everything is supplied. Nothing is in our own hand. With the purpose, so all these things are supplied with the purpose that we should make proper use of them to keep ourselves fit and healthy for the purpose of self-realization, leading to the ultimate goal of life, namely liberation from material struggle for existence, which was that word Shreya Param Avapsyata, the last line. Shreya Param Avapsyata of the previous verse, right? So this aim of life is attained by the performance of yajnas. Okay, so we end here, and then I'll take questions. I should really go on to the next one because it's tied in. It's tied in with this. Let's see. If we forget the purpose of human life and simply take supplies from the agents of the Lord for sense gratification, remember that word bhukte, and become more and more entangled in material existence, which is not the purpose of creation, certainly we become thieves. and therefore we are punished by the laws of material nature. It's amazing, isn't it? It's very convenient to be an atheist, actually. But actually it's inconvenient because hard reality is waiting. You live your life of a thief and you think, hey, I don't see no bolt of lightning coming and killing me. But a bolt of lightning does come. It's called death. Now what? Of course everyone likes to think, the atheist likes to think everything is finished. He thinks he got away with it. Really, okay, let's suppose you don't believe in God. Is it a chance you really want to take? I mean, you live your life a thief. Now, just suppose there's a chance, just suppose, hypothetically, everything's not finished and you're held to account. Because you've done a lot more things you should not have done because you were an atheist, you see. You were not careful, you were not, you just went all out. Just imagine if you have to you have to give account for everything you did. Very bad gamble. As gambling goes, no one should do this. That's very, very risky. Okay, so Srila Prabhupada develops this spiritual aim of life a little more. A society of thieves can never be happy because they have no aim in life. And he just referred that aim of life being spiritual. So they have no spiritual aim in life. So basically, this idea of enjoying the senses really amounts to an aimless life. You can't say my aim in life is to enjoy my senses. That's aimless. Think about it. The dogs also want to enjoy their senses. So that's not called a purposeful life. And it's interesting, I've heard some nice classes on this point, that sometimes devotees ask people on the street, what's your aim in life? What's your purpose in life? And funny enough, because they live a very aimless life, they don't know. They can't say. Because you see, sense enjoyment, you can't say, well, I want to enjoy, rasgulla. I mean, even the person, it doesn't sound right. I want to enjoy. It's an aimless life. So nobody has an aimless life. A purposeful life. So it's funny because in the material world they have seminars. They call them, one of them is called goal setting. You have to have 5-year goals, 10-year goals. What are you going to be this time 5 years from today? Your challenge. How much money should you have? But that's not a goal. This is foolishness. So they think they're very intelligent because they say, so if in 5 years' time you're going to be a millionaire, what are you going to do today to get there? Do that. This is not an aim in life. This is just dreams. This is like, what's my dream? Dream is not an aim in life. The only aim in life you can have that makes any sense is that to understand there's a Supreme Personality of God and I don't know who He is. I should find out. That becomes an aim. Now every day you're waking up and you're seeing if you're making progress in that purpose. Prabhupada writes, the gross materialist thieves have no ultimate goal of life. They're simply directed to sense gratification, nor do they have knowledge of how to perform yajnas. So naturally, if you have no such aim of life of Krishna, you're not going to perform any yajna. Lord Chaitanya, however, inaugurated the easiest performance of yajna, namely the Sankirtan yajna, which can be performed by anyone in the world who accepts the principles of Krishna consciousness. So sometimes there's this faction that says, no, no, don't preach, don't give philosophy, just do, Harinam. Well, unless people understand, they may not do Harinam. So the point is to have both. You have Harinam and you help people understand why it's important. So if somebody understands, he will accept this yajna. Because if you try to just make yajna look just nice, people usually get tired of, okay, I'm going to try something else. You see, that's the difficulty. But if somebody understands, this is not just nice, this is my purpose in life, with his intelligence, then there's every chance he will stick to it. He will adhere to that process. 5 minutes, I'm just thinking how much can I cover the next, although it's connected. Let me cover it because, no, actually it connects with the next one also, so we'll leave. We'll leave the next verse, text 13, for next time. Are there any questions? Pass the mic.